The decision has been made, but what does that mean moving forward? Understanding the impeachment process is key. Tiffany Tarpley is breaking down what's next.
Anytime you're talking about the potential removal of the President of the United States, people should pay attention. Whether you agree with it or you disagree with it, this is a big deal.
So we want to help you understand this process. First, either the House Judiciary Committee could begin the impeachment process, but Dean of Cleveland Marshall College of Law at Cleveland State, Lee Fisher, believes it's more likely that the issue will go before the full House of Representatives for a vote and majority rules.
A lot of people think that impeachment means you remove somebody from office. It does not mean that. It means that there will be a statement of charges. It's sort of like an indictment.
Second, Fisher says it's important to know that a president can't be removed from office unless the Senate holds a trial. The presiding judge over the case would be the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. 2/3 of the Senate would have to vote to remove the president.
So it's very hard to remove a president from office.
And lastly, Fisher says impeachment proceedings could take anywhere from 6 months to a year.
I think everyone should be concerned whenever any high public official, particularly the President of the United States, has been accused of anything serious. Doesn't mean that the charges are true. It doesn't mean they're false. It simply means there has to be an investigation.
So let's look back. Presidents Bill Clinton and Andrew Johnson were impeached but acquitted. Richard Nixon resigned before impeachment. Sarah, no president has ever been removed from office through impeachment.
Well, thank you for brushing up on our history lesson. We'll see what happens here. Thanks, Tiffany.